The film begins by showing a girl named Katie who is enjoying herself while peeing. Then, Katie is called by Sloane to join her friends who are tipsy from drinking. They also want to consume magic break candies to get even higher. After that, Sloane and Katie finally go home. Sloane is a cheerful girl with a lot of experience, easily turned on. Meanwhile, Katie is quite a quiet girl, innocent and naive, but she harbors a very terrifying psychopathic side. The story is about these two girls who dream of traveling to New York City for shopping. However, since they don't have any money, their dream has to be postponed for now. They decide to work on an organic farm with the help of their uncle to earn money. Coincidentally, their uncle is an intelligence officer. The next day, their uncle, named Jason, picks up the two girls and takes them to his apartment for temporary accommodation. They spend the night there. In the morning, Jason takes Katie and Sloane to a bus stop that will take them to the organic farm. But before they leave, their uncle gives them a secret code for safety that they have to use when communicating with Jason. For example, using the word apple in every message, and the code must be changed daily. This is done because Jason doesn't want anything bad to happen to his beloved nieces. Then, when Jason leaves, the two girls urgently need to pee, so they rush to find a toilet in a nearby cafe. At the same time, two guys named Jed and Lucas arrive. They approach Katie, who is left alone by Sloane in the toilet, and look at her with lustful eyes. Especially when Sloane returns, things get even more intense. It turns out they are interested in Katie and Sloane, and they start to introduce themselves using their charming and flirtatious tactics. In short, Katie and Sloane explain why they are working on the organic farm. These two guys then offer them a ride, claiming that the farm is on the same route as Jed and Lucas. At first, Katie refuses, but because Sloane is already infatuated with Jed's looks, they end up joining Jed and Lucas on the trip. Unbeknownst to them, bad things are about to happen. The story continues when they are in the car. It turns out the two guys don't take Katie and Sloane to the organic farm, but instead take them to their home. In short, they arrive at Jed and Lucas's house, where they're greeted by their mother with a seemingly happy smile. Their mother also offers them a cup of tea to drink before continuing their journey. They were happy and drank it right away. But suddenly Sloane, who has used drugs frequently, realized that they had been drugged. They then went out and tried to escape from there but failed because they were caught and taken by Jed and Lucas. The next day, Katie and Sloane woke up and were in a container box. Moreover, they were tied up and only wearing underwear. They were terrified of the situation they were facing. They could only cry and scream as loud as they could, hoping someone would hear and save them. Not long after, Jed came in with a weapon and said loudly, "No one can hear your screams." Then he told Katie and Sloane to enjoy the facilities available inside the box. Then came the leader of the criminal gang, named Boris. Boris was holding Katie's phone, talking, and he realized that someone named Jason was monitoring his niece's situation. He also suspected that the two were communicating using a secret code. So he demanded the secret code given by Jason. But Boris didn't know that the code had to be changed daily. He sent a message to Jason pretending to be Katie using the initial code, Apple. Next, Katie and Sloane were forced to bathe in front of these men, and suddenly a policeman arrived. It turned out that the policeman was also part of their group. The sheriff's name was Andrew, who initially acted like he was going to save them. But it turned out that he did this to make Katie and Sloane more scared, submissive, and easy to control. The sheriff then raped Katie until she cried because her virginity was taken. It turned out the purpose of kidnapping the two girls was to satisfy the lust of the local men for free. These men kept coming in turns, continuously raping the two girls, starting with a bearded man chose Sloane to satisfy his lust and tortured her before finally raping her in the box. Later that same day, another man came wearing a pig mask, who again chose Sloane as his sex slave. Sloane received cruel treatment from the man, making her private parts hurt, and she couldn't say anything with the pig mask on her head. Meanwhile, at the apartment, Jason was worried because his nieces were not at the organic farm. He received a message from Katie saying they were fine. But at the end of the message, Katie always used the same code. Feeling suspicious, Jason finally went to the place where Katie and Sloane disappeared. He reported the incident to the nearest police station, where the person in charge was Sheriff Andrew, feeling that his nieces had been kidnapped. Jason then reported the incident to the sheriff, but Sheriff Andrew responded casually, as if nothing had happened. He told Jason to go home and rest, because they would try to find them, although it's just an act. Getting more curious, Jason's FBI instincts kicked in, so he searched for Katie and Sloan on his own, even without a warrant. He went to the cafe that was known to be the last place where Katie and Sloan disappeared. Here, Jason got important information from the waiter, who said that before Katie and Sloan disappeared, they had spoken with two men and were taken away in a blue pickup truck. This news quickly reached Boris's ears. He went back to the forest area and got angry because he felt deceived about the secret code. Unbeknownst to them, Katie overheard their conversation about killing Katie and Sloan to cover their tracks. Then the next day, when Katie and Sloan were enjoying the last moments of their lives, Bearded Man came again. He was assigned to guard Katie and Sloan because Jed and Boris were preparing a slaughter event for the two girls. Here, Katie would show her terrifying psychopathic side. She knew that Bearded Man got easily aroused, so she planned to escape by taking off her clothes and pretending to seduce Bearded Man. Suddenly, Katie ended up killing Bearded Man in a brutal way, and they also managed to unlock the handcuffs on their hands. Shortly after, Sheriff Andrew, who came to assault the girls again, was shocked by Bearded Man's death. Moreover, his car was also stolen by the two girls. This made Sheriff Andrew even angrier. After successfully escaping, they accidentally met another girl who was also about to be kidnapped by the gang of criminals. This made them decide to go back to the village and take revenge because their dignity had been ruined. They finally went to a hardware store to buy their combat equipment. Armed with information and data from the storekeeper, Katie and Sloan went straight to Boris's house, who had just returned from the city. Unexpectedly, Boris got a surprise attack in the form of a spiked ball that was thrown right at his head and made the big man fall. Then they immediately searched for information about the pig-masked man who assaulted Sloan. After getting the identity of the pig man, without wasting time, Katie and Sloan tortured Boris by inserting a spiked stick into his anus and leaving him to die slowly. After the girls left, not long after, Jason arrived at Boris's place. How shocked he was when he saw Boris had died in quite a tragic state. And luckily, the girls didn't meet Jason, because they went straight to their next target, the pig-masked man. It turned out that he was a prominent pastor in one of the village churches. This man wasn't scared when he saw Sloan coming, but suddenly Katie hit him from behind until he fainted. After making the pig-masked man collapse, the two girls continued to torture him in a very brutal way. They dragged his body with a car around the village until he was completely disfigured. However, this man kept on babbling incoherently, cursing the two girls with prayers. Then Katie and Sloan continued to torture him again by burning him alive. Meanwhile, Jason returned to the police station and met with Sheriff Andrew to ask for the latest information about Katie and Sloan. However, when Jason called Katie, the phone that rang was the one held by Sheriff Andrew. Jason then realized that the sheriff was involved in the kidnapping of his nieces. Since he was already caught, Sheriff Andrew then took Jason hostage, locking him in a room where he planned to kill him. Because Sheriff Andrew was already aroused, he wanted to enjoy and taste the new girls they had just kidnapped. Without realizing it, Katie and Sloan were already behind him, ready to hit the sheriff on the head. They tortured him by playing a game called Russian roulette. Here they used a revolver and loaded it with one bullet. Then they took turns firing it, until the sheriff was terrified. Finally, they shot the sheriff in the head. After killing the sheriff, Katie and Sloan immediately left the place and instructed the two girls who were held hostage by Sheriff Andrew to free Jason without telling him about their recent experience. Meanwhile, Katie and Sloan went after the last members of the gang who kidnapped them, namely Jed, Lucas, and their mother. They drugged the three of them and gathered them in one room, forcing their mother to watch the slaughter of her two sons. In a tied-up state, Jed was beaten repeatedly by the two girls until he died. Meanwhile, they saw Lucas as a somewhat good guy, so they gave him a chance to live by making him kill his own mother. However, because Lucas loved his mother, he couldn't bring himself to kill her with his own hands, and he had to pay the price for that. Lucas was killed with a precise shot to his head. Lastly, The mother was going to be killed in an extremely brutal way. Katie and Sloane had prepared a lawnmower that they would use to shred the mother's body. And with extreme brutality, Katie moved the machine towards her face. At the end of the story, the two girls finally went back home happily and planned to continue their dream of shopping in New York. And the film ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Because by subscribing, you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.